Today's video will be taking a look at the various consumables that will be useful in raiding, PvP, and leveling. There's not much else to talk about in the intro except the usual. This is just based on the publicly available information we have and is possibly subject to change. Finally, unless noted, all effects will need to be reapplied after every death, starting with First Aid. There isn't much to say about First Aid except you want it for every mode, every spec, tank, DPS, PvP, PvE, leveling, raiding, dungeons, farming, whatever. Sorry to be annoying to list all of those out, but I just wanted to make myself absolutely clear. You want to get it leveled up early and as high as you can level it, and use those bandages every time you need to since they aren't hard to farm. This is the bare minimum consumable you'll make even if you ignore every other consumable listed in this guide. Now, on to cooking. Even if you don't want to personally level cooking, try to purchase some of the stamina and spirit food for the dungeon raid and leveling side of things as soon as possible, even at the lower levels. Don't be afraid to use it, as you can see there are many sources of food recipes that should keep prices relatively stable or give you a good area to go farm for your own meat. The best food you can get at level 25 is a plus 8 stamina and spirit buff for 15 minutes regardless of recipe. For PvP though, we don't want to say to never use this, but because you'll be potentially dying a lot and you have to stay seated upon resurrection for so long, it's probably not worth using beyond the initial 2-minute beginning of the match prep phase. Moving on to raid potions now though. Starting off, in case you didn't know how elixirs work, in Classic they are different from how they work in the later expansions. The biggest difference being you can have both a flask and one guardian and one battle elixir at 60, but unfortunately for level 25 we won't have any flask available. At 25 though, there are a few options for both guardian and battle elixirs worth taking a look at to eke out just a tiny bit more DPS or survivability for your character. For mana oils, you'll definitely want to grab the new data mined Black Fathom Mana Oil, which grants you a 2% spell hit buff, 12 mana per 5 seconds, lasts 30 minutes, and persists through death. However, it only works while you're zoned into the Black Fathom Deeps raid. If you're looking to do other quasi-raid content or PvE content, the next best item would be Minor Mana Oil, which a huge downgrade, giving a measly plus 4 mana per 5 seconds, but also persisting through death, is still better than nothing. For battle elixirs, there really is no wrong option regardless if you're tanking, shadow, fire, or hybrid based DPS specs. Elixir of Wisdom will give you plus 6 intellect for 1 hour, and Elixir of Firepower will give you plus 10 fire damage. Both aren't super amazing bonuses, but because you still weave both schools of magic for most DPS specs except Pure Fire, which, just use the Elixir of Firepower. But for the other DPS specs, the gain in DPS would be about equal, I imagine. I personally plan on just going with whatever is the cheapest since I don't plan on taking alchemy as one of my mains profession during the first phase. For guardian elixirs, the choice is very simple. For DPS specs, you want to prioritize Elixir of Fortitude, or as a cheap alternative option that is better than nothing, Strong Troll's Blood Potion gives us a 6 HP per 5 second hot for 1 hour. This may only amount to about 1 extra life tap per fight, but again, it's better than nothing. For tanking, at first glance you'd assume that you'd probably also want Elixir of Fortitude, and by all means that wouldn't be a bad choice. However, I think the better choice is the Elixir of Defense. When you combine the extra plus 150 defense from the Defense Elixir with the extra armor bonus from being in the Metamorphosis form, you get over 900 armor for 60 minutes from one simple potion. Combining that with an enchant to your cloak in the enchanting section we'll cover in a bit, and that raises it to an over 1080 armor from just 2 consumable effects. Finally, your utility unused potions should look something like this regardless of DPS or tank. Swiftness potions, free action potions, greater health potions, mana potions, hellstones, and soulstones. We did cover a lot of these in our Drain Life PvP specialization video, so we won't necessarily go over them again. However, to add on to those that we did mention a bit, if we have some extra money, it wouldn't hurt to add the Elixir of Defense for Metamorphosis builds or Fortitude Elixirs for non-Metamorphosis builds into your potion stash. Yes, you would need to reapply it after every death, so if you're in a losing match where you die super frequently, maybe don't use them. But combined with the Cloak enchant, the extra 1080 armor can seriously make a big difference in your survivability against melee users for Metamorphosis builds, and the extra 120 HP would amount to something like 10 to 15% of your HP pool at level 25 for non-Metamorphosis builds. Same with mana oils. I wouldn't prioritize them over any other consumable, but if you have them, you might as well use them. For me, regardless of my PvP spec, I'd be getting free action potions, lesser invisibility potions, elixirs of defense if I plan on doing a meta build, or Fortitude if I'm doing a non-meta build, 1 anti-poison consumable, and then of course greater health pots plus whatever other consumables I have like food buffs or band-aids at the bare minimum. For leveling, personally I will probably only be using the food buff, health pots, and bandages on my road to 25, but if you have the extra Skrilla to burn, using some of the previous mentioned elixirs, mana pots, or even any other not mentioned low level elixirs for some minor stat boosts is never a bad idea, as the extra stats should help you grind more efficiently. We just don't think anything beyond food buff, health pots, and first aid is going to be absolutely necessary with the gated level cap phasing. Finally, we're going to take a look at our enchants. Starting off, I have to make an estimation for where I think the maximum level we can obtain enchanting materials will be farmable for this phase, and my guess would be it settles in the 200 to 225 recipe range and level 25 to 30s for greens, a bit further in the phase once we get some BFD gear. If not, we have to settle for the sub 200 recipes. Our first item is cloaks, and we will want to get the highest defense enchant you can, whether that is plus 30 or plus 50 for PvE and PvP, and for both specs. The extra defense just helps us survive a tiny bit more for DPS if we pull aggro or get focused in PvP, and for tanks can be combined with the metamorphosis bonus for a sweet couple hundred extra defense. Chest enchants is either the lesser stats boost, which gives you plus 2 to all stats, or the highest stamina enchant you can get that's available, and that you base on whether you want more life or some extra mana or minuscule crit boosts. Bracers are a quite simple one-size-fits-all option, again just being the highest intellect enchant you can get. Boots will either be stamina enchant for tanks in PvE, or increased run speed for DPS in PvP. Reason being, DPS should be avoiding mechanics, not trying to survive through them unless it's an unavoidable mechanic, and in PvP you just want to run as fast as you can all the time. Lastly, for weapons, only staves have a useful enchant, and that is whatever the highest two-hander intellect enchant you can get is. However, one-handers have no useful enchants, so if you want to glow, go for the lowest ranked of either beast slaying or striking, since they'll probably be the cheapest enchants. Because there are only two-handed enchants useful to warlocks, if you are seriously trying to min-max your character, you should look at using a stave for this phase. Lastly, I and many others have noticed in the comments we remember the usefulness of Firestone when thinking about the new lock metas. However, our memories have failed us, and unless Blizzard adjusts things, we will not get our first rank of Firestone until level 28, which won't be available till the second phase level cap increase to level 40. That makes an even greater argument to use staves as your weapon, with a couple different dungeon option drops being the best choices to start BFD raiding with, which we will cover in a future video. Today we've taken a look at the vast amount of consumables we have the options of using for leveling, raiding, and PvP. Feel like we missed one? Let us know in the comments, and as always, like, comment, and subscribe for more future Warlock videos. Have a good night!